My name's Leanne and I'm a knitter. Welcome to the first episode of however many episodes I decide to commit to of Words and Whips, which is me, Leanne. So the reason we are here is because I knit and I think about knitting almost every moment of the day, and I have far too much to say about it. I have a knit night that I go to once a week, but that's not sufficient. So I'm gonna ramble regularly to you guys so I can just get it off my chest. This is gonna be kind of a mishmash of a video with very little structure. I'm gonna start by talking about my knitting journey. Spoiler alert, it's been a year. Then I'm gonna walk you through this lovely stack of finished objects that are off camera. And then I'm gonna talk about what's on the needles at the moment. So, bog standard, same as every other knitting YouTuber, but we're going with it. So let's dive in, shall we? I have said about 4 times already that my name's Leanne. It's not spelt like any other Leanne in the world. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are some of us, but it's not spelt the normal way. Just because my mum didn't want to. So everyone spells it wrong. So for you guys, L-I-A-N-E. That's my name. Today, or not today because I'm not filming on the day that this is going out, but today when this goes live, today marks exactly 1 year since I first picked up a pair of needles. 12 whole months. And I'm obsessed, like obsessed, hence why we're here. So I started knitting a year ago. I had a gran, no longer with us, but I had a gran who was very, very much the knitter of the family. Like, she knitted everything. She would never go anywhere without her C&H carrier bag full of wool, but I just wasn't interested in it when she was around, which I find really sad, because if she had known about Ravelry, honestly her mind would be blown, but unfortunately she didn't. I wasn't interested in it when I was younger. I didn't understand the point of just moving one stitch from one needle to another needle and like doing a clickety clackety thing. I didn't understand the point of it. Count me changed. I'm a changed woman. So how did I get into knitting? A year ago, or slightly more than a year ago, I was served that sounds like I'm going to court. I was served a Facebook ad from West Kent Mind. I live in Kent, shockingly. West Kent Mind is obviously the West Kent branch of Mind, the charity, the mental health charity. I got an ad from them about their Creative Minds courses, which is basically they got lottery funding to run these 6-month courses where the point was that you're doing something creative to help with your mental health. There were things like printmaking, I think there was a singing group, like lots of different creative endeavours. And one of them was knitting. Beginners to Knitters is what it was called, and it was run by the lovely, lovely Laura, who is now a good friend whose WhatsApp messages I failed to reply to. I've just realised I still have not responded to her. But anyway, Laura from Yarns of Anarchy is like, she's the celebrity town knitter. Like, she's, if there's a conversation about knitting, Laura's in it. She runs her own like knitting groups. She has a really great newsletter where she features like local yarn dyers and events and stuff. But anyway, she ran this 6-month course. Every week on a Thursday night, I would go to the what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. A church hall on the high street. I would go along to there. I would sit down with a bunch of other people, and Laura would teach us how to knit. 6 months. It was a long time, but it felt so good to be able to have someone there like looking over your shoulder and making sure that you're doing it right. And when you don't understand something, you can just ask the question rather than trying to Google it and teach yourself. In the past, I've had like knitting kits gifted to me, like knit your own Hermione Granger from Aldi. That was something I picked up in lockdown because the Aldi middle aisles in lockdown were just the creme de la creme of a shopping experience. But I was just so intimidated by it because yes, you can pick up needles and you can look and you can follow instructions, but when they're actually in your hands, it feels so alien. So to have Laura there every single week, like actually you can see what she's doing, you put it in your hands, you get confused, and then she's there to help you figure it out. When I started Beginners to Knitters, my original goal, I remember saying this to Laura, my goal was to knit a blanket by Christmas, right? That was my original goal. I was setting myself, like, a blanket's a big project, but it's a simple project. So I wasn't setting my ambitions too high, but I was trying to get a stretchy goal, a goal that stretches me, but not a goal that stresses me. That was my goal. In reality, I'd already knitted hats, and I knitted my first sweater by Christmas. I knitted a baby blanket. I did that for my niece, Arabella. I knitted a baby blanket, but I did so much more than that as well. And I swear to God, it's because I had Laura there every week helping me figure shit out. Outside of knitting, I'm a freelance copywriter, SEO, website-y person. So words are my jam, hence Words and Whips. I write for a living and I'm self-employed. So I have the luxury of being able to put a lot of hours into knitting when some people are unfortunately at work. But I find it really, like, the two work really well together, because in order to write creative copy, which is what I do, I have to be in the right frame of mind. Like, I have to be in a creative zone. And when I'm not in that zone and I'm trying to force the words to come out, it just doesn't happen. Now that I have knitting, if the words aren't coming, I take a break. I knit for probably longer than I should, but I knit for a bit, and it kind of gives my brain space to start coming up with ideas rather than trying to force them out. So that's my life. I spend time knitting when I should be writing. I spend time writing when I'd rather be knitting. Don't get me wrong, I really love writing. Like, why would I be a self-employed writer if I didn't love it? But sometimes, you know, knitting is more fun than writing. And that's where we are. As I said, today marks 1 whole year of being a knitter. Not that I would necessarily say that after one session I was a knitter, but you know what I mean. Today marks a whole year since I first properly picked up a pair of needles and committed to knitting. Let's get into the fun stuff. I have got a giant stack of finished objects next to me, so I'm going to run through not in chronological order because I can't remember when I made them, but I'm going to run through the things I've finished. Side note, there are many things I knitted as Christmas gifts that I do not have still, obviously, because they're Christmas gifts. The first sweater I ever knitted, I quite recently frogged because I gauge swatched, but it did not come out a good size, and it had a few mistakes that would have really bugged me now that I know how simple it was to fix the mistakes. Like, I dropped a couple of stitches and not fixed them because I didn't know how to at the time. And the other reason I frogged that was because I chose a bad design. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the pattern. I loved the pattern. The pattern was really simple, made everything really clear, but the style of the jumper just did not suit me. And I know that now, but when I was looking for a pattern for my first sweater, I was drawn in by the fact it was really cool. But it just it wasn't right for me and my body, so it got frogged. Anyway, the first thing I ever knitted was the Edie hat by Sari Nordland. Is it Sari Nordland? I think it's Sari Nordland. That's my hat, but I have no idea where it is. It's disappeared. It's in the house somewhere, but I can't find it. This hat I knit much more recently for George. It was a free pattern. I think it's called My Baker's Hat, and I can't remember the designer, but I will pop it, you know, in that box that people say that things are in. I knit this in CaMaRose Snefnug, and it's so nice. It's so soft and like fluffy, but not in an itchy way. And I've actually got yarn on the way to knit another one of these for my friend, whose birthday was in January and who I promised a hat, and I never knit it. I bought yarn for it, but then I didn't like the yarn that I bought for it. So I've got some CaMaRose Snefnug coming to knit another one of them. This is the thing I'm genuinely most proud of in, maybe not my life, like, I mean, I have academic achievements that I should probably be prouder of than this, but in my knitting life for sure, and probably in the last year of my life, this is the most proud achievement I have. And it's this. Look at it! It's a tiny little unicorn jumper. It's for my niece, Arabella. Shockingly, it's not for me. But this was, I mean, this was a challenge. This was, it's a drop shoulder construction, so I had to pick up stitches, which I'm notoriously a messy stitch picker-upperer, but with this one I spent ages making sure I got it right so I could get these details like perfect. I'm very proud of them. So drop shoulder construction, and the unicorn is in tarsia, which I've never done before, but it's actually surprisingly simple and surprisingly neat as well. And then once the unicorn was done and the sweater was washed and blocked, you then go in and these are like bundles of embroidery thread, and I've hooked them through. I used a crochet hook to loop them through a stitch all the way. It goes around the back as well. It's very, very cute. All the way up here, and then the final finishing touch was this little embroidered eye. And I'm not a neat embroiderer. I used to do cross stitch when I was younger, but embroidery has never been my forte, so it's not the neatest of eyes, but from a distance, who cares? You get distracted by the giant fluffy mane that is the best thing in the world. This is a pattern called, I think it's called the Always Forever sweater, like a 4, not a word, by Wool and Beyond, I believe. I knitted it in, so it's just some grey like acrylic yarn and some white acrylic yarn, but I paired the grey with a Silk Mohair from Along Avec Anna, and I paired the white with this nice like apricot peachy mohair that I picked up at Unravel from Rosie's Moments. I feel like that's what it was called. Again, I'll put it in that mystery box. The next two I'm going to tell you about together because they're the same pattern, different yarns, different styles. Two Tolster tees by Rebecca Clow. The first one I knitted is this one, and I've worn it so much. It's just a raglan t-shirt. I've knitted this in, I don't want to cause a yarn avalanche. This is the left, oh, it's back to front. Is it back to front or is it going to flip itself? Either way, Babytoly, 100% organic cotton. It's a DK weight pattern. I'm almost certain this is a DK weight yarn, but who knows? I got gauge, so it's fine. But it's this off-white colour and then like a sage green colour. No idea what the colours are called. That's gonna cause an avalanche. Yeah, so stripy version, which came out really nice. In a moment I'm going to tell you what I don't like about it. And then I also knitted this one in a linen yarn. I think it was a I picked it up in a shop in Cambridge. I think it was just the King Cole, I think it's called Linendale, I think. But obviously just a grey linen. First issue is that this one, I knitted too short. When it's on me, it's too short. I can wear it underneath my dungarees. I've got my Lucy and Yak dungarees that I wear that underneath regularly. But if I'm just wearing jeans, it's not quite long enough. It's a bit too cropped. And then this one, I can't remember what it was like when I first cast it off, but this neckline, it's wide. Like it starts to fall off my shoulders sometimes. I don't know if it was like that when I cast it off for a start, or if it's just that cotton stretches and hangs. Either way, I'm not gonna go back and fix it, but I have got another Tulsa tee that I would like to knit, and I think I'm going to cast on like 2 sizes down for the neckline and just do slightly more rapid increases for the raglan to get to my size. We'll see. This one, this is obviously a winter jumper, and it's like even picking it up, it feels too hot. So this is, again, top down raglan. It's very difficult to show you things, isn't it? This is knit in West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft Aran, in like this grey marley shade, and I love it. It's perfect fit. The only thing is that when I knitted this earlier this year, was it this year? Must have been this year. I did not commit to learning a stretchy bind off, so I just bound off with a needle size up on the body, and it's fine, it fits, it's not like I can't get it on, but it's just the rest of it is so nice and stretchy and bouncy, and then the bind off is just a bit restrictive. I mean, maybe at some point I'll go back and change that, seeing as I now have been brave enough to learn a better bind off. But other than that, I love it. It's got a folded rib neckline, just raglan shaping, you know, bog standard top down raglan, and I really like it. But it's definitely a winter wear. It's so heavy. And that was the pattern for that. Can't remember. It's got something to do with Weekend, but it's not The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. Is it just called The Weekend Sweater? I think it is, but I unfortunately can't remember the designer. Again, I'll put it in the mystery box. And then the last thing I have in my pile here is this very, very fluffy, very pink sweater. This is the Feather Sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. It was my first ever drop shoulder construction. It's got folded rib neckline, drop shoulder construction. This was before I started actually paying attention to picking up stitches, so it's not the neatest, but the fluffiness of this goddamn yarn hides a multitude of sins. So it's a drop shoulder construction. There's quite a lot of positive ease. So the pattern called for an Italian / tubular cast off on this, but oh my god, as someone who had never done one of them before and using, it's there but I'm not going to get it because it will cause an avalanche. I used Drops Melody for this, and it's the fluffiest, stickiest yarn. It looks lovely now, but it was a bitch to knit. So trying to do that for the first time with bind off for the first time with this yarn was never going to happen. So again, I went up a couple of needle sizes this time to do the bind off, so it's plenty big enough. I don't have any issues with it. There's no flare, but I didn't do the bind off that was called for. The arms, so I don't like knitting sleeves, so I have a tendency to bind off too early on sleeves because I get bored of them. And I did that here. So I could have done with maybe like a couple of centimeters, maybe an inch more length on the sleeves, but it's fine. And it's a nice like spring layer that is warm and cozy, but not too warm and cozy. This was a test knit, so that's what I'm coming on to. This was a test knit for the Knit Pearl Girls, so the pattern is out now and it's been out for a while now. And I would like to knit another one of these. The original pattern calls for like 2 or 3 strands of mohair held together. I went with Drops Melody just because, I mean, buying enough mohair to knit with 2 or 3 strands at a time would have cost a fortune. So I went with Drops Melody instead. So it was 1 strand, but it's super, super fluffy, so it reached gauge. But I would not knit a sweater in Drops Melody again because look at the state of this. Like, that is the very definition of pilling. It's horrendous. Like, I can literally just pull clumps off it. Which I probably shouldn't. I don't know how to deal with it. But, so I've worn it a few times, but I've not worn it a horrendous number of times. I've worn it maybe like 3 or 4 times and it's done that. And this isn't a recent thing either. This started happening after the very first time I wore it. So, not a massive fan of Drops Melody. But maybe obviously in like a hat or something smaller, something that gets less like, because it is mostly under the arms and the bottoms of the sleeves that are doing it, so something that gets less like frictiony wear might be fine. So that's it for finished objects. Not to brag, but that's not a whole year's worth of knitting. This is all stuff that's been finished. This is all stuff that's been finished this year. So now let's go on to whips, because there's a few. This, the best project bag in the entire world. This is the Mood Satin XL bag, and it is XL. Like, it's big. It holds a decent amount of knitting. So I got this for my birthday in February from George. It's not cheap, but it is really nice and I do really like it. So in this bag, we have many things. First thing is, so this is, it's not even on needles anymore because I needed the needles for something else, but this is the start of the Pim Pom Shawl by Laura Penrose, in this really, really nice, this is like the first nice yarn I bought. Look at it. It's Rico design, luxury, hand dyed. The word happiness is in there somewhere. No idea what colorway it is, but there's more of it up there. I did buy what I think is like sweater slash cardi quantity of not this colorway, but like a slightly more orange. Hang on. This is really nice. It's so soft, but I think it's supposed to be a DK weight, but I do not get DK gauge with it. So I started a cardigan and frogged it because I did not get the right gauge. But yeah, so that's the Pim Pom Shawl. It's in, this is solely like my bus knitting. If I'm on the bus going anywhere, I take this with me because it's small and easy and it's just garter stitch, so I don't have to think about it, which is why it doesn't make masses amount of progress because I only work with it on the bus. But it's in this nice pyramid bag by the little grey girl, who is Gem. She's local to me. She's friends with Laura, shockingly, because Laura's the like knitting celebrity of the county. But I got this in one of her sales, I think, but I've also met her a couple of times at Unravel as well. Next, whip. So this is the yarn that I frogged from the first sweater I knit, which I don't think I mentioned what it was. It was the Eun, E-U-N sweater by November Knits, and it's really, really nice. It's got like a really deep split hem, but I think for my shape, like I'm quite, I've got childbearing hips, and I think having that deeper split hem just didn't really work for me. It kind of looked like it was a split hem to accommodate my arse. But anyway, irrelevant. So I frogged that, reclaimed the yarn, and this is what we're working with now. So this is sweater number 26 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. It's the first pattern I've knit by her. It's a saddle shoulder construction. So the first thing you do with this pattern is you just knit 2 rectangles like this, like straight up rectangles, and then you pick up stitches for the back, and then, oh, I can't remember how I did it. Obviously it's in the pattern, but I can't remember. My concern with this, and I'm still a tiny bit concerned with it, is the neckline. So before I added the collar, the neckline was super wide. Like, I was worried about how wide it was. It was like wider than my stretched out Tolster tee. I then added the neckline, and the neckline is knit on like 2 or 3 sizes smaller needles. So it comes out like, if you look at the stockinette difference, so this is like the normal body stockinette, and then this is the neckline, the collar. So you knit it from inside out, and you knit double length stockinette, and then you fold it over and attach it along here. The concern I have with it, and it might go away with blocking once the body is longer and all done, but you can see it from here. Because the neckline was so wide before I added the collar, stitching the collar down has made it kind of bunch up a little bit. I think it might be worse on this side, yeah. So I'm kind of hoping that it will block out, because this yarn has been frogged, so it's not, I didn't bother like washing it and straightening it out before I re-knitted with it. So it's not the smoothest of yarns anyway, because it's all crimped from being frogged. So I'm hoping that it blocks out. But yeah, so I've only just joined in the round after doing the sleeves. So yeah, I have not touched that in a little while, I'm not gonna lie, just because it's at the stage where it's getting quite like big and heavy, and it's been too hot. So that's that. The other thing in here is, again, another thing that is probably one of my proudest achievements, even though it's not finished yet. So I'm working on the Moby slipover. Is that a vest? Moby vest. Look at it. Look at how beautiful that is. This is like the first time I committed to doing a pattern that I knew would really, really challenge me. Like, it's got cables, it's got mock cables, it's a different construction than I was used to, because I'd only knitted raglans up until this point. But I have now, I mean, you can see I joined in the round a while ago. I probably need another, I don't like it when things are too short, so I probably need another like 4 inches on the body, because obviously with cables it's gonna, when I block it, it's gonna stretch out a lot this way and lose a lot of length, so I don't want it down in my mouth. I don't want it to be too short, so this has not been touched in even longer than sweater number 26, because it requires quite a lot of brain. Like, I've got a gooseneck iPad holder thing that I set up on the sofa, and I have what's the app? Is it called Knit Companion? Something like that. So I have the charts. This was my first charted thing. So I have the charts on there, and it's not a like pick it up and knit it when you've got 5 minutes kind of whip. I will get it finished, and I think I should probably set myself a goal of having it finished for autumn, because it feels like a very autumn thing. But I'm so excited about it. I just need to pick it up again, make some more progress on it. So that's everything that is in my mood bag. And then I also have this little box that travels around the house with me. There's two things in here at the moment. There is a tiny little baby jumper. It's called the Bubble Sweater, but if you search that on Instagram or Ravelry, everything comes up. So more specifically, see, I don't know the name of the designer again. I'll put it in the history box. But basically just really simple top down raglan and this bubble pattern on the sleeves. The secret the secret finished object that I couldn't show you is entirely bubble stitch. So I was confident I could do bubble stitch. This is for my sister-in-law who is having her first boy. She's got 2 girls already and now she's having a boy. So we're doing some boy knitting. And then the other whip is, this isn't going to look like anything because it's too big for the needles now. It's the Novice Cardigan by Petite Knit. I think I've just, as in like last night, just done the last round of increases for the yoke. So I think I've just got a bit more stockinette to go, and then I split for sleeves on that. The yarn is it's a Sirdar yarn. I don't know what it's called because there's too many of them, but there's a history to that yarn. I started knitting the Pippin cardigan by the Knit Pearl Girl and I love it, but I could not, it's such an easy stitch pattern. It's a sand stitch, so on the wrong side, is it on the wrong side? I can't remember. One side just full knits, the other side you alternate knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, blah, blah, blah. And because it's like staggered, it doesn't come out as rib, it comes out as sand stitch. That was a terrible explanation, but I just really struggled, no idea why, really struggled to keep that pattern going and not end up being like broken rib. Then I frogged it back a little bit. Then I realised I hadn't frogged it back far enough, frogged it back even further. Then I like did some maths and worked out how many increases I still had. It's a raglan construction, so it's not too difficult to like catch up on the increases, but I didn't factor in the stitch pattern into my planning of increases and fucked up the pattern again. And at that point I was done with it, so I frogged it and started the Novice cardigan again because I had that pattern in my library already. I tried to make the Novice cardigan with the Rico orangey version of the Rico yarn over Christmas, but I didn't get the right gauge because it doesn't act like a DK weight yarn, and I didn't gauge swatch batch them because YOLO. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop waffling now because I'm done with what I'm saying. I hope this has been at least somewhat entertaining. I don't know, something to listen to while you knit. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I have no idea how to wrap these things up, so I'm just gonna say auf Wiedersehen. See you later. Bye-bye now.